Welcome everybody to the Wake Up Call channel. Today's show I want to talk about some of the bills that are deliberately being passed, which are really going to allow the Satanic Temple, which is a government religion. It is considered a government religion. Of course, I covered this many years ago when Barry Soetoro, Barack Obama, fast-tracked the Satanic Temple into being considered a religious tax-exempt organization in the United States of America. All of those things that happened then, we're starting to see why now. And I've covered it for a couple of years talking about what this was leading to. This is exactly what I was saying it was leading to. Obviously, we see Christians who are infuriated by it, but they don't seem to understand that the government's working together with organizations like the Satanic Temple. Because ultimately what they want to do and what has to happen in the New World Order is Christianity has to be removed from all grounds. Now, we already know that when they tell us that Christianity is in the school, that's nothing but a lie. But they really want to make sure that there are no programs that allow Christianity near any children. So the Satanic Temple was really created by the Central Intelligence Agency. It's a branch of the CIA. The Church of Satan has always been the known satanic organization in the United States of America. And even they seem to know openly that the Satanic Temple is, in fact, a government entity. That's why they hate one another. They come out and they claim that they don't really worship Satan. These are all things that they're doing to lure people into believing that this has to do with human rights. This has to do with equality. People are eating this stuff up hook, line, and sinker. So what we're seeing happen is not just the after-school Satan programs. It's spread to now allowing chaplains and ministers inside of schools. Again, this is something that came out of thin air, right? We've known that they haven't allowed Christianity in school for a long period of time. Just like all the stuff I talk about with Roe v. Wade, they're doing these things on purpose. They're gaslighting people, and they're using it as eventually another way that they're going to lure people into states. But it starts with the removal of Christianity from the schools. The Satanic Temple is doing this to make sure there's no after-school Bible programs. There's none of these things. And this is going to spread. We've seen them do this at city councils. They just did one up in Canada. Okay, they're trying to have God removed from all government, from all public grounds, period. So this is the story about the Satanic Temple going into now trying to get into Oklahoma schools if this new bill, which will allow chaplains, is passed. And again, who is coming up and saying, hey, we want chaplains, we want ministers, we want priests in schools? Okay, the government is the one who is initiating this so that the Satanists can get into the schools. And then you get to a point where you say, well, are we going to keep the Christian programs in there if it means equal rights and the Satanists can be in there too? Or are we just going to remove Christianity from all grounds? That's ultimately what it's about. Here's the story.
Meanwhile, a bill that would allow for chaplains of any federally recognized faith to work in Oklahoma schools. Even the Satanic Temple is moving forward.
News 4's Capitol Bureau Chief Kaylee Olivas has more.
If Jesus were to come back today, he'd be flipping your tables over because he did not preach to have a Christian nation or a theocratic nation rooted in any religion.
We're not bringing them in because we want a certain religious belief pushed. We're bringing them in because, they have all of those other qualifications and able to assist.
A divide between lawmakers on a bill that would allow for school chaplains in Oklahoma. It narrowly passed last week with a vote of 54 to 37.
I feel like it's something important, when there's a tragedy especially in a school, the local ministers come and help.
Now that it's advancing, the Satanic Temple says it plans to send ministers to school if signed into law, all in an effort to make a point that all religions should be accepted under this proposal.
The question is why? Why is it that we pretend that we need ministers or people do ministerial duties in schools when parents, families, anybody else has learned a long time ago to hold these things separate?
Show me in the Constitution where that verbiage is used, and it's not in there.
But the Oklahoma Constitution states, quote, no public money or property shall ever be appropriated, applied, donated for the use, benefit, or support of any sect, church, denomination, or system of religion. Republican Representative Kevin West acknowledges that, but says this will not benefit a singular religion. Also adding some chaplains will be volunteers and not paid with taxpayer dollars. Students can also opt out with a parent's parents' permission.
We will remember who you are. We will put Satanists in the schools, and we will be sure everybody knows that it was you specifically who invited the Satanists there.
So again, this is something that's being done by design. You have to be suspicious of how some of these things are coming up. Now, obviously, we can look at this and say, did anybody know how all of a sudden we have government who is now trying to bring Christianity into schools? I don't even know if Christians were clamoring for Christianity to be in schools, but the reality of the matter is we need to just remove human beings from schools, from the public school system, from all these schools, these institutions. That's all they are. It's literally prison for children. I went through the school system. You most likely went through the school system. Nothing of use is learned inside the school system. In fact, all it is used for is to condition you into believing a world of lies, history lies, all these things that couldn't set you up for failure. Let's be real. It couldn't set you up better for failure because you learn no trades, you don't know how to do anything for yourself, and you just are trained into being a puppet. You make a little resume, you go apply for a job. Useless. You become useless, and that's the point of the institution, of course, and then they beat fake history into your head, so your perception of the world as you grow older is nothing but lies, right? So the argument shouldn't even be about Christianity being in schools. All Christians should just remove their children from schools and figure out a way to raise their children learning trades, and of course, learning God's word. But this right here is specifically being done, the Senate Bill 36, again, to have Christianity wiped off the grounds, all public grounds, not just public schools, public grounds. You might have remembered the stories about blowing up the 10 Commandments in Oklahoma, right? Or certain public grounds were allowed to, like I cover this around the holidays or the Saturnalia specifically, when we see anything that has to do with the nativity on public grounds, right? We see some of these, Capitol buildings have, small nativity set up, and automatically the Satanic Temple on your tax money creates a nice little nativity. Well, not a nice one, but an expensive little nativity. They send it there and they put it there so everybody could go, well, if this is allowed, then this is allowed. If this is allowed, then that's allowed. And it's going to come to a point where Christians are going to say, is it worth having Christianity in school so that other children can be indoctrinated with Satanism? And ultimately, they're going to probably end up saying no, right? And this is going to play into the civil unrest, the dividing between red and blue states, because Christianity will be used heavily to seduce and lure people into specific spots. And Christians don't think ahead of how they could be sitting ducks. So you heard him saying there, you'll be responsible. Christians will be responsible for other children learning about Satanism. Ultimately, these people pretend like they don't believe in Satanism, and you'll never see them perform rituals on school grounds. What you will see them do is use gateways to lure and seduce these children into ultimately signing up for these things. Then you go over to the Satanic Temple's YouTube channel and their website. You actually watch them doing rituals where they're butt naked, walking around wearing gimp masks, dumping candle wax on each other's balls. I mean, the stuff then you go, well, I thought you don't believe in the devil. Well, this is just an act of art, right? You see where all this is going? They can just constantly label these things art or comedy or whatever they want and get away with it when the rest of us really have no freedoms anymore in this country. So the Oklahoma State Senate bill could allow chaplains in public schools. And again, remember, you're also seeing this going on with DeSantis in Florida. These are all traps. They're setting traps for Christians is what they're really doing. People thinking, I'm going wait. Oh man, you're thinking like this is you're just no. These are people who care about Christianity. These are people. Ron DeSantis is a good family man. These are all puppets of Israel. We all know that. We all see a lot of these Jesuit foot soldiers who aren't really Christian, who are luring Christians. They're tickling their ears, making them hear what they want to hear because they've gaslit them so much with all the crap that they've put in public schools and put in the libraries with, cross-dressing and all this stuff that they see their kids getting indoctrinated with. They're getting frustrated. They're looking for hope in the wrong places. Instead of just saying, you know what, get my kids out. The politicians aren't working for us. Let's just disengage from this government, this corrupt government. But instead, they just keep feeding into it because the gaslighting is working so much. They're feeding into this. They're getting lured and they don't even realize it. So it's not only Oklahoma, it's also Florida. So Representative Kevin West is the co-author of Senate Bill 36 along with Senator Nathan Dam. The proposal would allow public schools in the state to hire religious chaplains to counsel and work with their students. The chaplain can be hired or volunteered and won't be required to be Oklahoma State Department of Education certified. The individual will have to undergo a background check. It cannot be a former convict or defendant in an offense involving children. A chaplain may be dismissed for mental or physical abuse, negligent endangerment of a child, commission of an act of moral turpitude. The above list is not exhaustive, and a school district may dismiss an employed or volunteer chaplain if, for any reason, it believes the chaplain's presence could lead to harm. To be a school chaplain, the individual must be a minister, rabbi, priest, or a leader of a faith group, qualified morally, intellectually, and emotionally to serve as a chaplain, sensitive to religious pluralism, and able to provide for the free exercise of religion by all students. Chaplains must also complete or process a degree completing 120 semester hours, a graduate degree in theological or religious studies, and at least 72 hours in graduate work. Well, how does anyone defining that, right? What's the Satanist what is his background? Oh, he's got a degree in what? In devil worship. He's got a degree probably, in Aleister Crowley's, mastered Aleister Crowley's black magic teachings. I mean, the stuff they put in there to make this sound like this is some type of fine-tooth comb. They're really orchestrating this to make sure nothing bad goes on. This is all going to go forward. Meanwhile, nobody out there looks at the fact that the Satanists themselves, they openly, they're religious exempt, so they claim to be a religion, but they're a religion that doesn't believe in anything. Huh? So they don't believe in the devil. So they want you to, they believe in what? What? What is the requirement then to be a religion? I mean, it's unbelievable what they allow them to get away with, but we know why, because the government's in bed with these satanic organizations, specifically the Satanic Temple. So they say, we're not bringing school chaplains in because we want a certain religious belief pushed. We're bringing them in because they have all of those other qualifications to be able to assist. I feel like it's something important. When there's a tragedy, especially in a school, the local ministers can come and help, okay? That's what the the Representative West is saying. This is what people need to look at. Nobody out there is asking for these things. Nobody out there, the fact that they did the Roe v. Wade stuff, right? The fact that they're doing this stuff again with gay marriage and all these things. They're bringing these issues up to gaslight people. While we all would love Christianity and in schools and God to be in schools, the reality of the matter is nobody should be in schools. And you should be able to see that at this point in time. People should have realized that after they've gone through the public school system or whatever school system, then gone through college and realized that they really had to teach themselves a lot of stuff and didn't need the school system to do anything. If they have any trades at all, they likely taught themselves unless they went to a specific trade school. Now, trade school's different, but let's just look at it from the public school standpoint. Who brought this? Who suddenly came up and said, hey, after all these years, it's never happened before. You never had ministers in school, not in a long time, or a priest come into a school. Now we want priests to come into school. They only did that and brought attention to this for this purpose, to be able to have the Satanists, which is a government-run organization, the Satanic Temple, come forward and try to get into the schools. Because that's how they allow them to come in. They want Satanists in the schools. And if they aren't going to be in the schools, then Christianity will be removed from all public grounds. It's one or the other. And either way, it's a loss for Christians. And what they need to do is they need to just pull out of this thing. But I think ultimately, and pull out of this thing, I mean pull out of this psychological operation of the public school systems. But ultimately, they're going to bait Christians in these red states with having the Bible taught in the schools. And the parents are going to fall for it, hook, line, and sinker. They're going to, and before they become sitting ducks, I'm sure the curriculum will all be about supporting Israel inside the schools. They'll be like, oh, we're going to have Christianity in the schools. And parents are going to go, yes, I'm moving to these states. So much better for my child, even though they should be figuring out ways to raise their child themselves out of the institution. But they'll be like, oh, it's a better thing. They're going to be in public school and there's going to be a class about Bible study. I'm sure they'll just focus in on, twisting scripture into Israel worship and being in bed with it. I mean, that's where we're headed. Now, I don't know how people don't see how this whole thing works. They bait you with this stuff. None of these people care about Christians. All they want to do is destroy Christianity. It's been the ultimate enemy to world communism. Christianity is the enemy. And now all these people like Trump are Christian and nobody out there blinks. They buy all of it, hook, line, and sinker. It's scary and it's sad. So we're going to see this in red states. We're going to see this continue to go forward. And ultimately, the Satanists will show up at every one of these schools. They'll show up there and they'll say, we're getting in if you're there. And then it'll cause more separation because Christians will then pull out, or they'll say, well, I guess we have to allow the Satanists in the school too. They're setting up the laws to allow that to happen. The removal of Christianity or the open allowing of Satanism in schools. And people are like, oh, it's just, what? They don't even ask what the Satanists believe in. They go, well, they have these tenets. these tenets. They don't even realize what they're actually being taught. And they're like, we're not Satanists. We have the pentagram. We have the Baphomet. We're all about all these things we care so much about, like Planned Parenthood, Baal worship, child sacrifice, nothing. Nobody blinks at it. They just get gaslighted into what the government wants ultimately, and they think that they're making free decisions when they're not. The government is gaslighting you. This entire thing is gaslighting. That's all that it is. That's all that it is. Everybody knows when they see this, who has common sense. When they talk, unless you're completely asleep, when you see the government telling you they want preachers in school, ministers in school, priests in school, okay, you know that opens the door to the Satanists, right? And they're just like, oh, the Satanists, let's, no. And then people like DeSantis are like, oh, we will not allow them in, right? So then you're literally starting to change the Constitution, right? And then red states are setting it up where it's a Christian government, and the blue states are going to be separated from the red states. And ultimately, that's what they want. So they're doing this stuff to make you want the same exact thing that they want. And you should never want what the government wants, because what they want for you is not in your best interest. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you and your families as always.